Okay, let's go ahead and check out ISC. This time around, they're talking about armor and stuff. Let's see what they have to say.
We want the universe to feel diverse. We're trying to build worlds that have multiple communities, right? And we want the universe to feel like there's so many things out there, so many things that are unknown.
So the plan for the character team as far as new PU assets, we are making a much stronger push towards new armors. So all that said, let's look at some of the armors we've been working on.
My favorite is going to be the heat
Hey,
suit,
Jay Lee.
because it's the first of its kind where it mainly focuses on fabric.
This is not a modular armor, so the silhouette of it can be quite different because it doesn't have to mix and match like other armors do.
Okay.
So we could go with a much different, larger kind of silhouette that shows that there's a lot of protection on this armor from the very high heat surrounding.
So they say non-modular here. Non-modular, I imagine, means the same as, so like we have one set of, I believe, non-modular armor already in the game. That's the Novikov and the Pembroke, the really warm and really cold, like exploration gear. So I guess that this is something similar. They talk about this being very fabric heavy. If you guys remember from like last week, they talked about the Revenant pods that you can farm in Pyro. I have a feeling like this armor is going to be made of that particular material, because they've talked about how they want it to be a systemic thing where you find the pods, you take it to like, you know, a trader or something, and then by doing so, more of these things will be available in the verse to buy. So that's why I think this is going. This seems to be like a pyro exploration armor that's going to be based around that.
We had one version that didn't make it to the final, but it's really cool. We had one where it had vents where if the suit would overheat too much, the players would push a button or something and just steam would just come out. It's a cool idea.
Like boo.
However, the rule of cool doesn't always work. We also want the armors and clothing to look like they serve that purpose of whatever that function is.
Utilitarian Expeditioner Heat Resist Heavy Armor. So yeah, again, I really do hope that's where this is going to come into it, and be like an item, like a suit of armor that's dependent on like players doing stuff in the verse, like in its availability and maybe even in its price.
The players have to feel really good when they wear it. Mentally and also visually, they have to be like, oh, that's exactly what I want to wear. I feel proud to be wearing this.
I've played too many games where I was playing a support or utility, and I got stuck in some really crappy looking, lame outfit. I think the one that I'm most happy about of this particular group is the Grey Cat one.
So this is the Grey Cat armor that's coming out this summer. This is actually a cash shop item, I believe. They showed off 3 versions that were coming with the Rock DS. Now, either it's a cash shop item or it's just being tied in with the DS for now for its initial sale, but we'll see.
It's nice to go and approach like a utility armor and say, no, this gun's going to look cool. You could actually rock this thing and it's going to look nice.
We had several kickoffs before we even concepted this armor. When we were given the manufacturer Grey Cat, we were like, well, what is something that's already existing in the Star Citizen universe that we can reference off of? And the multi-tool was a godsend for us because we pretty much took a lot of those design cues, added additional references. The concept artist went and spent about a week just gathering references. We married the two together.
That's actually kind of cool. Like, you know how they talk about getting the style guide right for a different, like, you know, ship manufacturer or for, like, you know, all that stuff. And like how they couldn't make the Bounty Merchantman without making the Bounty Defender. Well, to make this armor, they basically got the style off the pistol. I like that, you know, and it doesn't look bad. It kind of resembles like a Geth or like a Marv from like from Titanfall. It's not a bad set of armor.
The armor archetypes that were introduced at CitizenCon 2 years ago have been a really big help for us on the art side of things. It's given us the direction for really to inform what we want to see visually on our armors. So when we know what an armor's best at, what is its, we can help visualize that in our actual concepts. So if an armor is going to be for mining, we can show that, you know, there's function on the armor, that it can gather resources better. It definitely has been good with us to collaborate with design and also with narrative very early in the process, so that before we put pen to paper, we have direction and we are all aligned on what we're going to be making.
So it's important to note that I don't think that the Grey Cat armor is going to be necessarily 100% exclusive to the subscriber base or to the, like the cash shop base, because of course they are showing off that yellow version as well. If you check out the pledge store, there is no yellow version. There's only a red, a silver, and an orange one. So I guess, the red one is for people who bought the red, multi-tool. The silver one, I guess, is for people who bought either the white or the blue one. And the orange is just something completely different. And then, of course, yellow will likely be somewhere there for us to buy in the future. In-game.
Most of the time, it starts off with design. Design will look at the overall game and be like, hey, this functionality does not exist, or this armor does not exist, and we need this type of armor. They will then run that through narrative and also double check with the design directors to make sure that that is in line with what we want to build in the game. And then once they have a general consensus of like this is the type of armor that we like, or this is the type of clothing that we would like, then they would contact us, and the design team will then implement it into the game, and then the writing team will write those pretty blurbs in our game that explains all the lore.
So the RS Heavy, this one is
the what Heavy? Is that like a different company?
So the RS Heavy.
The ROS Heavy?
This one is much more bulky and armored, but it still shares the same design language that you see in the RS. The manufacturer influence of a lot of wrapped cloth areas, and this is still getting that very tactical sort of vibe, something like a SWAT officer you might see.
It is important to point out here that this is just concept art, and we have had some really cool looking concept art come out before from Jay Lee that doesn't necessarily look exactly like what we got in game. A big example of that being the Caldera outfit from the other environmental armor. But, other things like the Castic Arms gear are pretty much one-to-one from what Jay Lee drew, so here's hoping.
With the variants, you can see we carried over the variants that you see before, so the Arctic Ops, the Black Ops, and also the Fallout versions. And similarly, they have new helmet fronts as well. So we get the geo changes as well as just the material variants.
So those are really, really cool variants. The one on the far right is maybe a bit too Star Wars Stormtrooper or something, or Death Trooper. But definitely, something, one of the designs that I'm looking at is going, yeah, that's pretty damn awesome. I would love that in different colors. But the moment they sell it in white or black, it's a Star Wars outfit, 100%. But it's great. But yeah.
So this armor here, we don't actually have an official name for it yet.
They keep calling it the Hurston Dynamics armor, though.
So, the armor. This is the armor that has no name for now. Hopefully, by the time it comes out, we've solved that problem. One thing that is unique about it, it is a modular armor. However,
modular.
There are
so arms, legs, chest, head,
like the breathing hose or cowl here, that normally would not work with our modular system.
There is this one thing that the character team we have talked about before in previous panels and stuff, and which is Theta Geo, where if we pair two or more items together, a very unique geo would then be added on.
Oh, okay.
So visually, they would look the best.
So if you wore the helmet by itself, you wouldn't see the rebreather pipe. If you wore the chest by yourself, you wouldn't see that pipe either. But when you have both sets, then they connect to each other and look even cooler, basically.
And be added on. So visually, they would look the best.
So incentivizing more full set Andes, basically.
Basically, this is geometry that only turns on when all the necessary pieces are there. So when the torso is there and when this helmet is there,
very
then you see the breathing
buff Quarian
and also the cowl. So this is something we'd like to feature on other armors going forward, where needed. So
the tube and the cowl they mentioned, so both of those things. So the helmet will just be by itself without the chest piece. When you have both of those on, then that cowl then shutters upwards, kind of like the Carrack or the Terrapin.
It allows us to push silhouettes and forms that are more unique,
I haven't seen this.
While still working with our modular system.
All right, so even though the name isn't, the armor isn't named, as you can see here, it still remains called Hurston. We've seen this concept art floating about in the verse for like the past 2 or so years now, maybe more. But now they have the original on the far left, and we have the Imperial security. We have the Arctic security. I guess they're really cold moons, you know, like Magda's pretty cool, so Arctic security makes sense. Maybe they'll add poles to Hurston at some point, but I'm not sure about that. There's military security, there's urban security, which is most of Lorville and stuff, and then there is shadow security. Now, this all says Hurston, and of course, you know, we have the reputation system, which is, you know, that central focus point that they can then start building off gameplay onto, and it'd be really cool if like you could level up with Hurston dynamics, and as you leveled up, you'd get more and more different pieces of Hurston armor. It would incentivize you to like actually have Everest Harbor or somewhere nearby Hurl 1, Hurl 2 as your home base, and Hurston is where you want to be, you know, like playing around and leveling up your rep because you want this gear, you want the special guns. Maybe even you would need a Hurston permit to get like a size 4 attrition gun because they don't sell it to people that they don't trust. Things like that would be really cool.
So I think for players to be able to have a character that they can modify and create a look that they really are excited about, I think it's very important. I think that and also when you're talking about an entire player base, you know, it doesn't have to be for everybody, right? The point is that
exactly.
there's a large variety, and we're only going to continue to add to that.
It's a good point he mentions here. Like, not all armor is for everybody. I see people whining about, you know, like the annoying stupid teddy bear helmet or the Vandal mask or like, you know, the Star Kitten helmet, you know, but like it's not there. If you don't like it, it's not there for you. The same way you walk out in the street and you don't immediately go, oh my god, this guy I don't know in the street is ruining my immersion of real life. You know, it just doesn't work like that. And, you know, like that's what I love so much about this game is that even though, like, you know, they have all these, I guess, very particular style cues, they're not afraid to, like, go a little bit elsewhere and, you know, outside their normal, like, I guess, scope, just to make it so that the world is more rounded in that kind of way, you know?
Challenge is that there are very specific rules when you have armor that has to be cut up in exactly a certain way. Like there are volumes we have to stick by. With this has to be there, this has to be here, and so things don't clip. The challenge is that,
see,
if you think about
stupid
dozens and dozens and dozens of armors,
it deserves to be there.
You know, holding that rule set to be true.
Even though it's taunting me.
How do you create unique silhouettes?
Stop taunting me.
Because they all have to mix match. So that's one of the things we are looking into with some of the tech we're pushing right now.
But this is actually a good example of armor mixing, because even though these are both Castic Arms armor, that's the Inquisitor armor mixed with the Dust Up helmet, you know, like, and then of course the cat ears and stuff like that. That's already an example of gear that's being mixed and matched.
One of the things we are looking into with some of the tech we're pushing right now, where certain pieces of geometry only turn on when those specific pieces are connected.
I do love the idea of geometry turning on like that.
We are going to make some armors like the heat suit where it is bespoke. It isn't swappable just because it has a very, very unique silhouette, and we wanted to keep that. So
I wonder why we're getting another heat suit. Are they removing the Pembroke armor altogether? Because it is just a reskin. Or is it going to be special in another way? Maybe they'll like change the parameters on the Pembroke to make it so that this other heat suit's more important.
Those might be more the exception, but we do have room for that stuff as well. So, but yeah, being able to customize your character in a game is very important. So that's something we're only going to be offering more choices, not less. So
why did his voice just get really loud?
With the new archetypes first mentioned at CitizenCon 2949, leading to a new design and feature-driven pipeline for armor creation over the last year,
his microphone's on
the
backwards.
future of Star Citizen's character defense has never been brighter or more versatile. But up next, the upcoming Alpha 314 is scheduled to bring with it the addition of Stanton's newest landing zone. So let's take a brief look at the currently in development industrial platform of Origin, and get a refresher on who Crusader is and what they do in the Star Citizen universe.
Crusader Industries is one of the ship manufacturers in the game. They got their start
Skyline
way
Industry.
back at around the time of the fall of the Messers August Dunlow, the founder of the company, he saw the new economy about to take off and
I want
thought
that ship
there
so
was a
much.
way that he could make money and redirect it back into the community. And that was at the very foundation of Crusader Industries. Back in the late 29th century, when the Stanton system was discovered, the UEE was kind of hurting for funding. This idea was put into place of maybe they could sell the land of these inhabitable worlds to private corporations to make funds for the UEE. And so Crusader saw this and saw the potential for how it could change the way they built ships. They wouldn't need their full teams to be EVAing and wearing full suits and protective gear. They could have them in breathable environment. And so in 2863, Kelly Kaplan, the CEO, convinced Crusader to purchase one of these worlds, and that's how the planet became known as Crusader. So when Crusader bought the planet, they needed a base of operations and started building out the Providence platform, which was the original naval shipyard. When they were building Orison, Crusader really wanted to have it be a nice place to visit.
So I'm gonna pause that there. So Will's basically just talking about some of the lore. I'm pausing it because of that shuttle. So we know that, like with ArcCorp, we have the shuttle bus. In Microtech, we have the maglev. Is that the shuttle, or is that a ship that we haven't seen yet? Because CIG doesn't really give us many. I mean, like, what is this exactly? I mean, if it's like a taxi, I want it. I want a taxi ship. It's the MSR. It's not the MSR.
We also like this idea of this veneer and sheen pleasantness that comes.
Oh, there
to
it is again.
So there
yeah.
is those elements of like almost a theme park with the tour shuttle that you can go on, and with the parks.
Yeah, tour shuttle. They said.
Feeling of just a beautiful place
I want it.
to visit. So the three main locations that players are going to visit when they head down to Orison is August Dunlow Spaceport, named after the founder of Crusader Industries. Cloudview Center, which is the main kind of habitation, relaxation, hangout area. There's shopping, there's dining, there's entertainment. And from there, you can head out to Providence Industrial Platform, which is one of the main manufacturing hubs where Crusader is building their ships.
So this is Providence Industrial Platform. We're in a debug mode right now, which is white albedo, because we're going through our lighting pass at the moment. So when the patch comes out properly, you'll be able to experience it in its full glory with all proper lighting and whatnot. So starting from the very beginning, so this is the kind of ingress point for this particular platform here. So we've got a part where we come from the commercial district, and then we have a landing where you come from the spaceport. One of the things that we really wanted to chuck in, and
It looks
Chris
so cool.
really wanted to have this, was that it's like if you go to a car, like one of the big car companies, they have like exclusive tours and whatnot. So we kind of have this tour shop that's in here. So if you're not a worker or you're not coming over for business or anything like that, you would come in here, you could buy merch, you can look at all the schwanky ships that are being made, and then you can go on a
Schwanky.
tour of the actual manufacturing plant.
I can't wait for a morphologist to break this one down. So that's the Crusader Discovery Center, where you can buy like little merch and stuff.
Down the right here we have a worker's entrance, which is for the actual platform itself. We're going to have a uniform shop here for those guys if they forget
A
something.
uniform shop.
And then we have the official workers entrance here, which will go to a train which allows them to travel up and down the colossal dry dock that we've got here.
So it says ID and all that stuff you need. Is that going to be reputation locked or what? Because in the roadmap, they do talk about making this Crusader uniform. They also mention that it's for players to be able to purchase as well. So who knows? It might just be a spawn closet for NPCs, or it could be something else down the line if you have a reputation with Crusader that gives you the access for it.
So that's one side of the workers area. You're not going to expect any like huge die presses or anything over here. This is more big ships are coming in and dropping off like raw materials to help in the construction. Kind of an interesting
The
space,
verse
the
needs
way
more
that it's been
rep-locked
situated
items.
within the platform itself. And then coming out the other side, you can see the rest of Providence platform that we're on right now. And then down here, we have on this deck in particular, we actually have some escape pods. So this is actually an escape pod
pods,
here.
okay.
So this is like, in case of an emergency, people can escape and like become neutrally buoyant within the atmosphere.
Oh.
And then continuing along this way here, if we go up this little walkway up here, we kind of have this mid deck. So if I zoom out, you
That's
can kinda
really
see
cool
where we
thinking.
are. So this is that admin fluid buffer area, and logistics are over here. So we've kind of got this in-between deck here. As part of that, we've kind of thought about how we can add a little bit more functionality to these spaces so that we can have the potential to expand upon them in the future. So we've gone in and we've added in a lot of screens around the place that potentially could be interactable. And we also have a little port here which lets us go down and service some of the equipment.
So they talk about servicing. He says potentially. The idea is that for stations and stuff, they are building these set pieces in a way that, like, if they wanted to, and at least for now, with things like the orbital stations, they've talked about missions where you can, like, you know, go into like a maintenance shaft and repair things and that kind of stuff. So like, you won't necessarily have to leave a station to do missions and that kind of thing, depending on what you want to do in the verse.
Actually, part of what we were really trying to achieve here was like really getting that sense of vertigo. So when you're like just floating above nothing but cloud, you kind of just, it's just you.
It's very Jetsons.
Basically at that point, which is something we don't really have anywhere on our planets apart from in space, right? On that note as well, this is not the proper level. This is just a construction level that we're using. And trying to get a vibe of what this could potentially look like in the actual proper level. Just to make sure, before everyone gets too excited, this is not what the final product is going to look like. This is not the actual Crusader. It's just a construction level.
So for the first release, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff to go and check out and explore on the platform. But what's great is that we're planning to add even more down the road in future releases for the players to do there.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the new armor
right.
archetypes aim to add more function to the already impressive styling of Star Citizen's character armors. That even if you play a support role like mining, you deserve to look just as badass as everyone else. And that Crusader is more than just a planet and a brand. It's a whole way of life. I really need to be in the clouds.
Such a nerd.
For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all next week.
All right, so that was ISC. Some really cool things there, guys. So yeah, like we saw some cool armor offerings. Of course, the Grey Cat stuff. We saw the new heat-resistant gear that kind of has this weird winch on the front of it as well. You know, we saw like that rappelling thing, like in the Carrack trailer, and in general, when characters do certain things, eventually, you know, like the idea is that we'll be able to do that in game. So that's them modeling that all out already. My hope is that this is actually tied to, you know, like items and some sort of the economy as well. It was good to see Jay Lee as well. We haven't seen Jay Lee for a tiny bit in some CIG videos, so it's cool to see that he's still doing awesome things with Star Citizen concept. Alright, anyway, well, thanks for watching this one with us again, guys. We'll be uploading again next week with the next ISC. Until then, be good.